So now we know that Kenya Airways just recently started flying to JFK, New York Airport. And our next speaker is going to tell you what a mistake they made. What a missed opportunity they made by not choosing Miami, and you'll find out why. Mr. Amer is the manager, Aviation for Trade and Logistics for the Marketing Division of Miami-Dade Aviation Department, which operates Miami International Airport. His duties include marketing, trade analysis, business development, logistics, and facility expansion, and air service route development. Please welcome from Miami International Airport, Mr. Pineda.
Hello? Okay, can you hear me now? That's a little bit better. Thank you. First of all, I want to let you know that it's my first time here in Nairobi, and it's a tremendous pleasure to be back in Africa. I was in Africa just in February attending the Air Cargo Africa conference, and now I'm back again today to speak to you about some opportunities and some exciting things that are happening at Miami International Airport. So let me get started. I know we're running a little bit late, so we'll just get right into it. So the airport basically is responsible for sustaining two major industries in South Florida. Those are tourism and trade. We have an economic impact today of about $30 billion. So we are, just like the port, one of the largest economic contributors to Miami-Dade County, of which today we generate over 270,000 direct and indirect jobs that are associated with the operations at Miami International Airport. We're operated by Miami-Dade County Aviation Department, part of Miami-Dade County. Thanks to the leadership of the chairwoman in this delegation, this is a great opportunity for us to talk about Miami International Airport and what we are doing at the airport. And here are some of the rankings, some of the latest statistics on the airport. Today we're #1 in international cargo in the United States. We're #3 in international passenger as a gateway behind Los Angeles and JFK. We are the largest and best served gateway to Latin America. Probably you know that already. Bill mentioned over 100 airlines, of which 64 are passenger and 38 are cargo airlines. We serve 170 passenger destinations, 111 freighter destinations, and last year we had a record year with over 45 million passengers going through our facilities. If we switch over to the cargo, here we're #1 in international freight in the Americas, 2.3 million metric tons in 2018, 85% of which was outbound cargo, or I'm sorry, international cargo, pardon me. I want to highlight the center here, $59 billion worth of imports and exports. $59 million, that's origin and destination, of which 53% was origin and destination, I'm sorry, of which 47% was in transit. We don't have an in-transit number because that number isn't calculated by customs, but we estimated that it's roughly the same thing. So there's about $160 billion worth of trade going between Miami and the world today, of which 81% of imports and 78% of exports are between Latin America. So again, going back to what I mentioned earlier, that we're the gateway to Latin America. 94% of all of Florida's air trade value goes through Miami International Airport. If you add both seaport and airport, meaning all trade going through Florida, 40% of it by value goes through Miami International Airport. So you can see, obviously, we have a substantial contribution to the local economy and to the local trade globally. So Miami is also very well connected. Everybody thinks how well connected we are to Latin America, but let's start in North America, where today we have over 66 nonstop destinations with over 1,800 weekly frequencies. If we go to Latin America, 1,300 weekly departures serving 82 nonstop destinations in Latin America. We serve Latin America better than any other airport in the world, actually. When we move over to Europe, 22 nonstop transatlantic destinations, 181 weekly departures. So again, we also serve Europe quite well, and we're continuing to grow our air service, and I'll get into that in a moment. Speaking of air service, Ethiopian Airlines started flying to Miami last year in August. This is the first time that Miami has had a cargo carrier from Africa serving our airport. So they've been very successful so far, operating 777 freighters, moving approximately 12.8 million kilos so far, an interesting routing through Europe, and then Latin America, and then through Miami and back to Europe. So we are now making some headways into the African market, first with cargo, and hopefully soon with passenger. And speaking of passenger, Bill mentioned this earlier, Royal Air Maroc will start on April 3rd. This is our first passenger flight to the continent since South Africans stopped flying several years ago. Along with that, we have Norwegian, which started on the 31st of March, flying to London. And we also expect a lot of Polish airlines starting in June of this year, flying to Warsaw. So air service continues to develop at Miami International Airport. Air service to Africa is now finally starting to develop, and hopefully very soon to Nairobi. So before I get into more about Kenya Airways and what our thoughts are there, I wanted to point out the importance of perishables, because if you are going to attract cargo or passenger airlines, you have to fill the cargo aircraft, whether it's the belly or the main deck of the freighter. Today, Miami leads the world in perishables. 63% of all perishables coming into the United States by air go via Miami International Airport. That's a huge number. If you break the perishables number down into the three major areas, so seafood, flowers, and fruits and vegetables, on the seafood side, a little less than half of all seafood entering the United States by air goes through the airport. 89% of all flowers entering the United States by air go through Miami International Airport, and 65% of all fruits and vegetables entering the United States go by into Miami International Airport by air. Now, the important one here for this market is flowers. Flowers is a huge industry here in Kenya. We realize that, and this is, I think, where the opportunity is for this market. We have also been launching several initiatives, and also an important factor for this market is pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceutical growth in value in Miami has gone from about $2.7 billion in 2013 to nearly $5 billion in 2018. That's huge growth, and again, another opportunity for this market. A few years ago, Miami International Airport, along with IATA, had our airport certified as a pharma hub, meaning that we went through this certification process, the Center of Excellence for Independent Validators. We call it CIV for short, it's easier to say. This process basically had several of our carriers, several of our handling companies, several of our freight forwarders in the airport go through this certification process, and now we've been designated this pharma hub. What does that all mean? That means that we know how to handle pharmaceuticals, processing, moving it, transporting it. The biggest excursions for pharma products being transported occur on the tarmac of the airport. This is where these companies, are making a difference, because they know how to handle pharmaceuticals at the airport, so that doesn't happen. Another good opportunity for this market, because there is a large amount of pharmaceutical that is moving between Miami and the rest of the world, in particular here in Africa. Recently, we've designated ourselves, I should say, the e-commerce hub of the Americas. And I was happy to hear yesterday from several of the delegates that spoke to us how tech-savvy Nairobi and Kenya is. This is an enormous opportunity, folks. E-commerce is the biggest disruptor and the most important disruptor going on in logistics today. We at the airport have formed a task force that is looking at e-commerce and how that is changing and how we can facilitate more e-commerce coming through our airport. We basically outlined three major goals: cross-border e-commerce facilitation, regulatory policy, security environment conducive for e-commerce, and finally, promote and advocate e-commerce objectives in the community. This is a public-private collaboration effort. We invite the private sector to the airport. We discuss issues revolving e-commerce facilitation, e-commerce clearance. We work with our customs and federal agencies to talk about how we can make sure that we are leading in e-commerce clearance at an international gateway. The two graphs that you see there, the The one on the left kind of highlights what's going on in the African market as far as e-commerce. Obviously, today it is low, but it is working up. So it's gone from about 1.3 to 2.2% of the total retail sales. So that is a huge number in this marketplace. The one on the left, on the right here, is globally, and the growth here was 18% globally. The percentage change, sorry, and the total retail sales is 14%. But the interesting thing about those two graphs is the other one, 17.9, so almost 18% growth in Africa for e-commerce. Again, that is huge. That's comparable to growth in China, where most of e-commerce is taking place. So this is another great opportunity for development of trade between our regions. So let's talk a little bit more directly about what's going on between Miami International Airport and Kenya. This graph here illustrates that Kenya is our #1 trade partner in Africa. 803,000 tons, worth $19.2 billion, number 3 when it comes to value. Again, here, most of this traffic is associated with flowers, and we'll see that in a moment. But you can see that Kenya is leading the other African markets. But when you start combining some of these markets, and you directly look at what is actually being moved, mostly flowers from here, and aerospace, higher value goods, computers, peripherals, jewelry, and so forth, from Miami and back and forth. This is where there might be an opportunity. The opportunity lies in the possibility that Kenya Airways, passenger or cargo, might start flying to Miami. Now, they made a bad decision going to New York. Don't tell anybody. But that doesn't mean that they're not looking at Miami. And we've had some conversations with them, and there is a possibility for this in the future. The discussions are continuing, so I feel very confident that hopefully at some point in the future we will be able to say that we have direct service to Nairobi. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll be here as well. Thank you.